Hey friends, it's Sarah from She's Crafty and She Knows It, and today I'm going to show you how to finger knit a trivet. So this is a super fun, pretty quick little craft. If you haven't done any finger knitting before, I do have like an intro to the basics of finger knitting, so check out that video first. I actually have a whole playlist that's going to be just finger knitting and hand knitting videos, so if you want to do other kind of crafts and tutorials like that, go check out that playlist. But it might be helpful to watch that intro to finger knitting first before you start this. But I have two trivets here that I've already made, and this one is actually using a colored rope macrame cord from Michaels. It comes in like this pretty green, pink, this orangey color. It also comes in a blue and like a neutral. So I do love this rope. The reason I'm not using it today is I thought it was cotton when I bought it. It is actually 75% cotton, 25% unknown, which I don't know what unknown reclaimed fibers are. And so the important thing with trivets is that you want to be using cotton. If it's some kind of acrylic or anything that's like plasticky, it can melt when you put hot stuff on it. Now I have tested this myself, these ropes, putting really hot pots that I've been boiling water in and stuff on this trivet. I haven't noticed anything, no weird smells, no melting. So I think it's fine, but I just wanted to make sure y'all were aware of that. So I will link these ropes in the description below this video, as well as just some neutral. So this is a neutral kind of rope that I got at Michael's as well. And then I just bought this huge one on Amazon because I wanted more and it was a much better price. So I will link this huge bundle on Amazon. I think it was $18, which is expensive, but this was $10 for a little thing, and it basically used the whole package to make one trivet. This is, I think, $18, and it was like 5 times the amount of rope that this package came with. So this is a really good bang for your buck. So I'm going to be using that one. So I'm going to go ahead and move these to the side. Okay, friends, so to make this trivet, we're going to be knitting with 2 fingers. Now, if you want a more detailed explanation of how to do 2-finger or 3-finger or 4-finger knitting, go back to my intro to finger knitting video and watch that. But I will go over the basics here again too. So I call the beginning part the tail. It's like how long you're going to have in the beginning, what length you want. So instead of doing a tiny short one, we're going to do at least a foot. I've already taped the end. So if your end is raw end, this is the part I cut off. If your end looks like this, I recommend taping it because it can just continue to kind of unravel. So tape your end. I just use some packaging tape. You could use masking tape or scotch tape, whatever you have. I leave kind of an extra pointy long part that's the rope ends here. So pointy after it because we're going to want it at the end. So just trust me on that part. Okay, so I'm going to take like a foot of it and I'm going to grab it with right there between my thumb and my pointer. So I have my long tail. I promise we're going to want a long tail. I know it feels like you're just wasting a bunch, but we're going to want it later. Longer is better than shorter, so definitely don't do like this, at least a foot. Okay, pinch it between your thumb and your pointer, and we're going to do the 2-finger knitting. So you're going to turn your hand over and put it between your pointer and your middle finger like this. You're going to go under your middle and around, under your pointer and around. That's 1 loop on each finger. We want 2 loops on each finger, so we're going to go around again, around your middle, around your pointer, and then you're going to pinch it right there. So it's right there between your pointer and your middle, kind of pinch it like that. So we're pinching it here, pinching it back there. We have 2 loops on each finger, just like that. That's how we know we're ready to do our first little knitting. You're going to pull the bottom loop over the top. Now with this thicker rope, the rope doesn't quite have the give that the yarn does. That's why I wanted to do the first intro video using yarn, because it's a little bit harder with the rope. So you might want to scoot the loops kind of more to the end of your fingertips. Pull the bottom one over the top. You might have to use your thumb to kind of help hold it. You'll get used to it, I promise. Bottom over the top. Now when you do this, this gets real loose. You can see this on the first little set. It's because that's where the tail is. So I just pull the tail to get that first little set tight. Scoot it down a tiny bit. Now this is the working yarn. This is the yarn that we're going to be using. It's coming out between your pointer and your middle. We're going to wrap it again under and over the middle, under and over the pointer, and kind of pinch it. So same thing. There's 2 loops on each finger. We're going to do the bottom over the top, the bottom over the top. Now, if you pull your loops real tight on this, it's going to be very hard to get the loops over each other. So don't do the loops too tight. I kind of spread my fingers out and try to have the loops a little bit looser the bottom over the top, the bottom over the top, just like that. Okay, so here's the working yarn again. We only have one loop on each finger, so we go under and over the middle, under and over the pointer. I don't even really pinch it. Once it gets here, it's kind of hard to pinch, so I kind of just let it hang there like that. Bottom over the top, bottom over the top. And then you just keep going. So we're going to do this same thing for a pretty long time. I wanted to be able to give you an exact length of how long we're going to do this. I'm going to keep going. So if you feel like you don't quite have the hang of the 2-finger knitting, go back and either watch the beginning of what I just did again, or go back to the intro to finger knitting video and watch that and kind of practice. You might want to practice with some looser yarn until you really get the hang of it, but go practice that and then come back. Once you have the 2-finger knitting down, this is going to seem like a piece of cake, I promise. Just don't do it too tight, because like I said, this kind of macrame rope doesn't have like a ton of give. And like I said earlier, for this, make sure you're using cotton. So if you wanted to use yarn, it would have to be 100% cotton. You would not want to use anything acrylic, plasticky, nothing like that. It needs to be cotton because you're going to be putting hot stuff on it. Obviously, if you're doing this and it's not, it's more like just decorative and not really a trivet that you're using for hot things, and you can use whatever you want. But for hot stuff, you want it to be cotton. So you can see it's kind of making this pretty cubed rope. I call it cube because it's the same on all 4 sides. So it's kind of the knit pattern on all the sides. It's so pretty. So what we're going to be doing is doing a long rope of this, or snake. My girls call it a snake. So a long snake. Now I wanted to give you an exact length of like, we're going to finger knit 60 inches or whatever to make the trivet. The problem is, let me show you. This rope I use right here is thicker and chunkier. They're both considered 6mm. So I don't know, this one is also 6mm and it looks very different. So sometimes the 6mm from different companies and different places is different. These two match more. I'm thinking the 6mm from Michaels is actually probably thicker than 6mm, but I didn't measure it exactly. This is the 6mm seems to be about 1/4 of an inch, just for an estimate for you. But this one, I needed 60 inches. So this is 60 inches, just to give you an estimate of the snake of this, 60 inches of this. This one is 72. So this one is a whole lot longer because it was just not as chunky. This is so chunky that it took less of the snake to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep doing this for a really long time, and then we're going to kind of loop it around itself. So let me move those. So I'm going to keep doing this. I'm not going to go for a measurement. I'm going to go until I have a pretty long amount, and then I'm going to kind of loop it up and test it out to see if it's the size I want. I know that I want my trivets about 8 inches in diameter. So that's what I'm shooting more for 8 inches in diameter than I am a specific length. So I'm going to go ahead and keep doing a bunch of this, and I'll be back when I have enough length. Okay, friends, so it's been 11 minutes and I have about 6 feet. It's a little bit shy, but about 6 feet here that I did. And then I wanted to mention real quick, I'm trying to keep this on my fingers. Hold on. I don't want to take it off yet because I might not be done. I meant to tell you with this, it did take me almost the entire package. There's like maybe, I don't know, a foot or so, 2 feet left. Not enough to do anything with, but this is 16.6 yards. Now, like I said, it is thicker than the one I'm using, so I'll need more of the thinner one. This one just works up a little bit faster since it's so chunky. But I just wanted you to know that one of these makes one trivet. There's not enough left to really do much with, just so you have an idea kind of the yardage and what you might need. Okay, so with this, I have it all up here. It makes this kind of really cool cubed rope thing. So what I do is kind of put your tail out of the way. I leave it on my fingers in case I need to come back. And we're going to twist it up like this. And you want to keep see this braid on top? I try to keep the same braid on top the whole time. We're just going to go ahead and twist it up just to get an idea of if I've knit enough. So you're going to keep twisting it like this, trying to keep this little tail out of the way. And now I'm keeping it where the same knitting is facing up the whole time. We're just kind of spinning it. This will just give me, it wants to twist, so I don't want it to twist. I want to make sure that the same side of this kind of rope snake thing is facing up the whole time. That's the way to get it to be the flattest. So that way, if you're actually using it as a trivet, it's not like making your pot or something want to fall over. So see how I could twist it like this? It could we don't want to do that. We want to keep it perfectly flat, the same side on top the whole time. Now I do have stitch markers. I should have grabbed one to show you. If you really, this is driving you crazy and you want to take it off, you can take it off and put it on a stitch marker. And it's kind of this little plastic hoop that will keep your spot. It doesn't really bother me to test this out while the loops are on my fingers. If it bothers you though, I'll try to put a link to the stitch markers below. Almost there. So you can do obviously a 6-inch trivet or whatever size you want. I'm used to using 8-inch ones at my house, and so that's just kind of the size I always go for. So I'm thinking I'm going to need a little bit more. It's 8 that direction, but not quite this. And so I think I just need to do a little bit more to where it can come around to here and finish 8 over here. So not that much at all. So while I have it like this, first of all, you can see how pretty it's going to be. It's so pretty. But there is like the braided macrame cording. So I don't have any sitting right here with me, or I would show you. But there's kind of a braided cording. It looks like there's also something called sash cording. It's what they used on like old-timey windows. So I'll link some of those as well with the supplies, the sash cording and kind of the more braided stuff instead of it being rope. So if you don't like the rope look of how it's twisted, there are other options as far as the macrame cording goes. I personally kind of just prefer how the twisted one looks. Now, obviously, it is more individual threads, so it could kind of get pulled a little bit and stuff like that. But to me, the braid shows up so much better, and it just has less gaps in it. The cording that's kind of like braided instead of twisted has, to me, it shows more of the gaps in between, and I like how this pulls so tight. So that's why I'm using the rope one, just so that you know. But I prefer it, but you might like the braided one better. So I'm going to leave it mostly twisted up like this. Try to do a little bit more real quick. Now there are some places on Amazon that sell the colored rope similar to this. A lot of them didn't have any of the 6mm in stock. Some had like 5mm. So you could play around with making trivets out of thinner macrame cording rather than this stuff if you want a specific color. I don't mind it. I kind of like the neutral. Most of my house is pretty neutral. But I will also link the rope from Michaels and just any options I can find. Anything that I think is cool that's reasonably priced. Some of them get really pricey. So I'll put all those links in the description below this video. So just look there if you're wanting links to specific supplies and things like the stitch markers that you might be interested in. I probably just did too much. I just realized I was talking and I think I got distracted. Okay, yeah, it goes around quite a bit. Okay, I'm going to go and take it off. There's no way that's not good enough. So keep my, just like that. If we do it like this, that is 8. I'm just going to leave it like that for now. So I'm not going to take anything off. So these are going to kind of go off to the side. What we're going to do for now, okay, I have my cording. I'm going to cut. So here's this end right here. I'm going to cut, honestly, probably about 2 feet. I'm not measuring, it's not exact. But I'm going to cut about 2 feet off. I just want to make sure I have plenty to mess around with. So what you do is, this is just so that we're going to finish this so it won't come unraveled. We can always, if it's too long, we can undo it later. But right here you can see, let me put it back on my fingers. So you can see this loop right here on this finger is attached to the working yarn. So we don't want to put the yarn through there. We want to start with the other loop. So if you can tell, see how this is attached to here? We want to start with this loop over here, the other loop. Put it through, this is the end I just cut, put it through this loop and then through the loop that the working yarn is through. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm gonna turn it this way. So the working yarn is coming out right here. It's attached to this loop. So we have 2 loops. We take the end, we put it through the loop that does not have the working yarn attached to it. Put it through the other one first, and then the one with the working yarn attached to it, and you pull it through and kind of pull it like that. So we're not knotting it off. I'm just finishing it up enough. If I needed to undo it, it's really easy to undo it. It's just finishing up enough that it won't start unraveling while I'm messing with the other end. So I'm going to kind of untwist the whole thing. I know it was looking so cool, but the way we attach it together, so I have my little end, I've already put tape on it. It's kind of a little bit hard, which is what you want. And this is kind of like my needle I'm going to use for the weaving. And so you loop it around and you're going to kind of turn it like this, and you're going to see what spot this working yarn is kind of close to, and we're going to stick this through there. So I want you to really be able to see this. So we're going to turn it like this, and this is going to go through the loops. If I turn it on the side, we're going to stick this through the loops like this, and it's going to pull that close like that. Okay, so then we're going to do it again. What you're going to do is you're going to keep attaching it to itself whenever, this is what we're going to call the little tail. So wherever the tail, and remember we're keeping the braid the same. We're not letting it twist like this as we're going. We're keeping the same part that's on top the whole time. We're twisting it around. I know my hands are probably in the way. And see right here, when the little tail gets close and it's about time for it to be tucked and hidden, you don't want to do this. As soon as it's close, instead of rolling the tail up and not being able to see it, you're going to take this little end right here and you're going to put it through the loops that it was about to touch, and then you're going to pull it, and it attaches it to that row. You're going to keep going, twisting. We're keeping the braid up the same whole time. Okay, see right here, now that it's about to touch right there, you're going to pull it apart. We're not putting it like up through one. We don't want to do that. We're putting it straight through the middle of it. That way it's kind of hidden. You can't really see it. So straight through the middle like that. See how you can see kind of the tape going through there? Like that. Pull it together. If you do it like this, to me, this is a little bit too much of a gap. So I know that I didn't do the correct loop. I need to go back one. This happens to me a lot, so don't worry about it. So that was too much of a gap. I hold on the loop I was doing and I just go back one little loop and see if that looks better. This is very forgiving. You can like keep doing and undoing it. So that looks a little bit tighter and pulled better. So I'm going to do that one. Keep twisting. Now you, like I said, you don't want to leave it real kind of huge gap. So kind of pull it as you're twisting. See, now this is starting to twist. We don't want that to twist. So keep it up flat. Okay, now make sure it's real pulled the way you want to. And you're trying to figure out which little loop to go through. Put it through and it attaches it there. So we're just going to keep doing that same idea all the way around, making sure this braid is not twisting. This is a very forgiving craft. You really can't mess it up. Okay, so that's it. Let's see what size we have. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put tape on the other end of this rope. Okay, now if you want to make sure that your ends meet up together, you could have I could have not cut this when I did and left it on my fingers and then done a little bit more knitting to make sure that this lines up right here and that this end is with this end, and then you tie those two things in a knot. I'm not that particular. I don't think the ends have to match up perfectly. So if it's a size that you want, I just kind of take this little taped in, stick it through. I'm going to do one on the bottom because this is going to be the top of my trivet. So I kind of stick it through one of the loops like this, and I kind of attach it like that, if that makes sense. We're going to tie a little knot right there. So you're just tying a little knot to kind of attach the end right here to one of the loops at the bottom. So it does not have to be a particular way because we're going to weave in these ends, but the idea is that you're just kind of finishing it off and putting a knot there. Sometimes when you go around and connect this spot to this, it makes kind of a lump. Let me show you. That's how I did this one, and it kind of makes a more obvious chunk. So to me, I don't mind this little knot. It kind of smooths it out and makes it a little bit more round. So we have our two taped ends. I'm going to go ahead and flip it over because I think I want this side to be the top. So let's flip it over. Not that one really looks much better than the other, but assuming this is our bottom, we're going to take, this is how we started right here. This is the beginning piece. We're going to weave it in and out through. And now you don't want it to be really bumpy. We don't want to weave it over the top of this. We want to weave it through. And so remember how we wove it through in the beginning? We're doing the similar, but we're going back a different direction. So it's kind of hard to tell, but this is woven. It looks mainly on this line. So maybe we're going to take this and go more around this side. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to go through the middle of one of the loops next to it. And this is where the tape becomes like a little needle. And you're going to have to do some finagling. This is like not a precise science by any means. So I'm taking this end, pulling it through the loop next to it. I'm going to go over a little bit and through. Now I'm going in one more little ring or coil through the next layer and going like that. Pull it tight. You still don't want to see it. The idea is that you're not seeing it. And this is just connecting them. So if you don't do this, I shouldn't have shown you. If you don't do this, it can kind of come like this, which is fine because it's still attached somewhere. So it's not going to completely come undone. And I know some people like it like that. They're fine. They pick it up. I showed you my one like this. It's a little bit more floppy. It's not going to come undone. It's still attached in places. So you can pick it up and when you throw it down, go like that, it's good to go. So it's not going to completely fall apart. I just like it to feel a little bit more stable. So I'm just going ring by ring, kind of going over, and it's just attaching it a little bit further. So you can see, now that I've done this, these coils or rings, whatever you want to call them, are attached right here together. I'm going to go in one more like this. Pulling it real flat one more time, and then I think I'm going to go back out this direction again and attach these. So now I'm going to turn. So like I said, the idea is that it's hidden. You can't see it. You're weaving it in and out in kind of an inconspicuous way. So there isn't really an exact science. There's no exact right or wrong way to do this. The idea is that it's just not obvious and it's getting the job done. Now, of course, if you really say you're wanting to sell these or give them as gifts and you really want them to feel sturdy, you can definitely take a needle and thread. It could even be a little bit thicker thread. There's those really, big plastic kind of needles. So you could definitely do that and do some nice threading and really sew it together so it's a little bit more sturdy. For me, in my everyday use, this is good enough for me. So I'm just kind of weaving it still. And then we're going to do the same idea with the other end. So to me, this is just all of the extra little effort that's going to make it last longer, at least in my house with my girls helping me set the table and put things on the table. Having it a little bit more sturdy for me will be helpful. Okay, I'm going to take the little end. It's sticking out here. I'm going to cut it. I'm leaving some of the tape on there. Hopefully you can see that. A little bit of tape so it won't unravel, but it's hidden in there. So now I did try to see what's attached and where it's not attached so that we can kind of fix it. And sometimes you might pull it through a spot and decide it doesn't look good and want to go back through somewhere else. And of course, that's totally okay. I think I'm going to go down a little bit and up through here to attach that. Now, you can just do this just with the beginning piece or the ending piece. I just do it with both because that's why I left the beginning piece so long rather than just doing it with the end, is I really just wanted the extra stability. But of course, you don't have to do that. It's up to you. Just make sure whatever you're doing is not making your trivet so lumpy that it's going to be hard to use. Okay, so now I could continue to keep weaving in and out, or I can just go ahead and cut off the end. I'm going to just go ahead and put a tiny bit more tape around the end and weave it in. I don't want to finish weaving this in. It's very secure. I've done enough of weaving the end through it, and so I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of tape down here. I just do this just in case a little piece pops out. It's not going to unravel at all. Like I said, you can use Scotch tape or packing tape or anything like that. I couldn't find my clear packing tape. I do have some somewhere that's like the completely clear kind, but I figured this would work good enough. So I'm just going to weave it through until the tape is a little bit hidden, and then I'll cut it off. Just like that. Okay, as long as it has a tiny bit of tape on it, you can cut it off. And ta-da! So there is our top. You can still tell where the knot is, where it ended, but to me, it's totally fine. Here's this. Like I said, it's a little bit more of a chunkier knot when the two ends come together, but if that's more what you want to do, that's fine as well too. But I just think they turn out so prettier. So that kind of gives you a good comparison to see. This is how the chunkier, this is the rope from Michaels, how it turns out versus how these other ones are a little bit more similar. This is a twisted macrame rope from Michaels as well, and this is the new one from Amazon, which is honestly a little bit smoother and softer than both of these. This one is tall and it's really pretty, but it's kind of a little bit lumpy just because the rope is so thick. This one is very smooth. It's actually the smoothest and the flattest out of all of them. So I really do think I prefer actually this Amazon cord that I got, which is a better bang for your buck anyways. But like I said, I will link all of the supplies I use in the description below this video. And if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and make sure you subscribe for more videos. Bye!
She's crafty and she knows it. She's crafty and she knows it. She's crafty and she knows. She's crafty and she knows it.